Microsoft SharePoint audience targeting versus security and security trimming. Hi, I'm Mike Giannotti. And as folks, I've seen a resurgence of folks getting very interested around SharePoint, um, how it feeds into, Viva connections and other things, and really around news and wanting to target not only news, but also specific files and content and put that out there. And so there's two different mechanisms within SharePoint for handling some of this, and it's important to understand the differences. So I'm going to talk about quickly what audience targeting is because a lot of folks are very interested in it. I'll talk about what it does not do from a security standpoint because that is imperative that people understand, especially in the age of AI and Copilot and discovery and creation of content. And then we'll talk a little bit about security. So first off, audience targeting. Our audience targeting, what is it? Well, it's this great feature to be able to target specific content to specific users or groups of users. And you can see I'm going to provide the links to all this, but it talks about where audience targeting can be enabled on my screen. It's over here. So that's why I'm looking there. You can see we can do this with navigational links. We can do it with pages, which again, very important. Oftentimes we want to do pages for news or for HR content, etc. Highlighted content web parts, quick link web part, events web part, Viva Connections dashboard, right? So we can target content in a lot of different ways so that when a user comes to a particular view or particular page, they're going to see content that's targeted to them, not to other groups, right? You may do that geographically based upon organizational breakdown, etc. So what is it? It's a filtering mechanism. It's filtering based upon selected criteria. So for example, you could apply that and select users. You might use security groups, although it does not secure the data. We'll get to that. You could use security groups, email distribution lists, whatever the case is, right? Typically M365 groups. But the point is, you're filtering the views so that different people see different content depending on who they are. But it is only a filter, right? I might do that with the nav links, right? I go and I hover over particular links so that I see that, during the drop down, I get links pertinent to me. It's not saying that those areas I'm not seeing are secured. It's just doing a filtering to cut out the noise. And that's really what it's about, right? It is back end personalizing, not an end user personalizing their experience, but on the back end, IT or publishers, HR, etc., personalizing and filtering out all the other noise of content. And I'm going to show you a quick example where we can see where we can enable this. So I have a site opened and I opened up the news web part, and you can see here, we have news stories coming out. Now I might have many of them, but if I come over here and I scroll down, right, to the editing the properties of this particular, you can see we have enable audience targeting. If I mouse over, it says enable audience targeting to promote content to specific audiences across the site. Again, cut out the noise, promote the content pertinent to them. And I can enable that by coming here, click enabling. Then when I'm publishing a news story, I can target that content. Now, that does not secure that content. And that's the important note, right? So while we have the ability to come in and to target content, and again, I'm going to provide, we do this across nav, pages, Viva connections. It's a whole range of those. It's not the same as permissions. So in SharePoint, we can permission things at a site level, at a document library or list level, at a folder level, and at an item level. Very granular to more macro permissioning. That's what secures content from not being seen by others. Not targeting, again, that's just filtering the views that people are getting. securing that content is very important. So for example, for a home page, let's go back to our particular site here, and I'm going to go back to their this Work Smart homepage here. So we've got all kinds of content that's on this particular page. Of course, I can audience target content showing up in the news because at a corporate level for that homepage, I only want users to see for their different divisions, etc., and not others, right? To filter out the view. But if I want to secure that news underlying, right, for there, I will do that at the different areas, and that's where it gets important how you do handling your information architecture for the site. How are you breaking things up? So, for example, on this news page up here, it could be an HR page with different policies and procedures. I can target, yes, but if I need to secure so other folks don't see content that may be, there may be information of an IP that I don't want others to see it for compliance, security reasons, then what I need to do is ensure that my architecture is set up accordingly. So, for example, I might be publishing stories that show up because I can have an aggregate that shows across news from a number of different sources, different sites. I could break it up by sites, right? Or I could break it up by document libraries where I'm publishing that information to. So I might have page libraries set up, different ones. Let's say it's an HR site. I might go ahead and say, for this group, in my case, I handle healthcare providers. So I could say, for clinicians at hospital X, here's the policies and procedures pertinent to them. I'm going to secure that library, or I might have a subsite, that site, or a folder that's for that particular group, or even individual files, and I'll apply permissions at that level because that will ensure that people from other hospitals, for example, cannot get to that content and see it. And again, very important, right? If I cross state lines, that may be very different, the rules and regulations. Or I have some healthcare providers who are international. Again, very different things may apply to those users. So I want to secure certain content that we're publishing. I handle that by permissions. This is SharePoint 101 from way back, but that's where we handle access. Now, it does do some trimming of that information in certain circumstances. So for example, if I go in and I have, a particular site like this, right? And I was to come in, let's say, let's go to site contents, and I want to secure content. Let's say I secured a particular library here, like this training content one, and I applied distinct permissions. Well, then only those people with those distinct permissions could see that folder or that library and see the contents around it. If somebody shared a link to contents, they can't get to it. If they search, it doesn't show up in search, right? Any of the contents from there because they haven't been permissioned for it. So that's security trimming that can be done. In addition, for those folks, maybe this library, maybe I give them access, I give everybody access to it, but I do things here. Well, here we have a folder. Maybe I do it at a file level, right? So I secure a particular file. Well, again, if somebody's looking in this library, they'll only see the files they have access to, not to the ones they are not permissioned to. So there is an element of targeting, it's really trimming versus filtering, right? So we're security trimming that view, but we can do that there. The other important thing with all of this and securing content, um, as far as how you're going to do that, making sure you're setting up your information architecture appropriately, is in this age of AI, as people are going and asking AI for generative, they're submitting their prompts and getting back generative AI responses. It security trims content that user does not have access to. So if you've secured your content, it will not appear to that person. Any derivative answers from the AI will not draw from those sources to generate that AI. So Audience targeting, it's great, super helpful for filtering views, especially. So we don't want to cause a lot of noise, on particular pages. So great feature that we can do here with audience targeting, but keep in mind that's separate and distinct from security. When you want to secure content and data, it's still classic permissioning the files or the folders or the libraries or the sites to ensure that people only have access to what they should have access to. They're distinct. One is a publishing mechanism for filtering and personalization. The other is your security and applying that security. So keep that in mind as you go through. I'd hate to see organizations stumble and say, oh, well, we're targeting this. Why are other people able to get to this file? It's because of the permissioning. So remember, permissioning is always table stakes at that base level you should be handling, and adjusting your information architecture accordingly to handle publishing and exposure of that data as appropriate. Targeting of it is a separate piece to filter and make things just more friendly, less busy for the user. I hope you found that helpful. I hope you take advantage of both and make sure you're applying the appropriate security first and foremost, and then targeting as needed to make life a lot simpler and better for your users. But just some things. I will include a written up post underneath, as well as resources to help you with both targeting and permissioning. This is Mike Giannotti here for HLS. Bidding you have a great day. Take care. And as always, ciao.